Добрый день, дорогие друзья.
Good afternoon, dear friends, dear Theosophists. We are happy to welcome you at the scientific online seminar, The Secret Doctrine by Helen Blavatsky. Today, we are glad to welcome all the listeners and members of the scientific group. Today, there are the following members of the International Scientific Group, and we're happy to welcome Mr. Sergei Kalganov, the PhD of the Russian Theosophical Institute, Mr. Sergei Rashupkin, the professor of St. Petersburg Polytechnic University, Madam Litva Latvia, Mr. Onhan Kwan, the Doctor of Theosophy, Professor of the School of Arts, South Korea. Dear participants, today you can write all your commentaries in questions and answers section. After the session, we will have the material for study for members of the scientific group that will be, as usual, placed at our site in social networks and at our YouTube channel. Today, you will work with us, post questions, write commentaries through question and answer section in Zoom. Based on these questions, we have a monthly video forum, questions and answers of the listeners, called the Theosophical Quiz. That video has already been watched by more than 2,500 people. Our workshop is initially elaborated not only for those who already know the Secret Doctrine, but also for those who have just interest in it. The workshop will last for 2 hours, and please don't leave and respect each other. Today we have the interpreters, Alexander Bobko and Marina Lezakovich. Thank you very much for your work, for your job, and thank you, dear members of the International Scientific Group and our speakers. Today we have more than 100 listeners from many countries of the world, listeners to our workshop. I see that there are members of the Theosophical Lodge and scientists from Samara, Ufa, Omsk, Saratov, Nizhny Novgorod, Voronezh, Sochi, Yalta, Karelia, Rostov-on-Don, etc., and our colleagues, foreign theosophists and scientists from Slovenia, Pakistan, France, Brazil, Australia, Belarus, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, Austria, India, Philippines, Greece, Germany, Israel, Angola, Singapore. Thank you very much for being with us today. Today, we propose the study of Sloka 3, Stanza 1 of the Secret Doctrine, presenting Vladimir Yary, the Theosophical Society of Russia, Lodge Adamant, Evgenia Kastamoniti, Theosophical Society of Greece, Mr. Arni Narendran, Theosophical Society of India, Esther Pokran, the Theosophical Society of Australia,
Теософское общество Франции.
Lodge, and Bridget Tekken, Theosophical Society of France, Blavatsky Lodge. We wish you all fruitful work, and our scientific workshop, named after Madame Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine, is open. We propose the floor to the president of Adamant Lodge of the Russian Theosophical Society, Vladimir Yary. Hello, dear friends, brothers and sisters. I welcome you all. You are all in my heart. Thank you very much for having such a need such a desire for knowledge about Theosophy. I would like to begin, as usual, by the thought for meditation to the day proposed by Madame Blavatsky in The Pearl of East. Today, however, it is strange, but the thought of the day is the following. Wherever one goes, karma follows one's shadow. Actually, today we will discuss karma. We will discuss in particular dharma, or its those who guide us on it, the forces that reveal this third law. According to the thought of the day, we have the guiding thought first of all. And it becomes clear to us that during our reflection or meditation, we come to the conclusion that that is what we will be thinking about today. And according to this concentration, to the thought of the day, we are actually having the clear vision and picture of the way that the laws of karma reveal themselves with the account of reasons born by Maya. Maya itself gives birth to Nidana. According to these Nidanas and their symbiosis, we are in energies of these Nidanas today. And these Nidanas, at the wheel of time, are presented in the following combinations. Combinations of guides of our moral nature. Nidanas are actually this causal relation, this reason and the consequence. And it is really important. This connection means that there are energies, but these guides are forces. So it means that each Nidana has a consequence and reason in itself according to the uniting or magnetic force that is capable of revealing the law, in manifesting the law, or is capable of helping the universal mind to express itself for man, for our capacity of mind, for the fact that we, by our brain, catch forces bringing information. So such a combination of the century of white dragon, the century of the white dragon itself, means dragon is wisdom, and white color is symbolized by the element. The element is ether or metal, or by other words, the age of dragon can be revealed by the structure of ether, of space, and ether itself is an energy dodecaeder with having the energy of the age on its ribs. This energy flows according to years. Through these years, giving birth to force, to understanding of these feeling living beings. So the age of dragon and manifested wisdom is what we have in our existence today, in this day. And dragon symbolizes not only wisdom, but also existence. And this existence is actually the law, the causal law. So the dragon is a connecting point or a mediator between karmic forces and karmic law. We are coming to this age, and we are in this condition manifested wisdom. But our task is to understand it, to get it, and how we do it. It depends on consciousness and on mind of any particular person. It depends on how this man can reflect. Either he or she thinks that this is vision, or as a heart vision, intuitive one. And in these spaces, we're trying to understand the age according to universal energies and Brahma energies for this age. Today we can accept it, but what will help us? Will helped by the year. This year is symbolized by the white bull. The same ether, the white ether, and the bull is the symbol of vision. It has a huge potential capacity to implement the thought brought this year, concentrating in itself the thought of the age. This thought is concentrated in the white bull, and the white bull is actually the principle we all refer to. We all are having it as a nidana or as a moral manifestation of our. It really is present in its force. So each and every of us implements our consciousness according to his or her development and capacity. Capacity of this consciousness, substance of the manifested age that we call the soul in this world, or the capacity of mind to understand processes that take place, to understand and to perceive thought. That is what is concentrated in this year. So is it easy? It is easier for a human to understand the thought of the age. We can implement a lot in a year. Can you imagine what an opportunity we have? The next principle. The next principle is the weak, the black orb. It is manifestation of consciousness. It's consciousness, and it opens itself. So our consciousness of Akasha is the initial element. It is the reason of sound that will reveal waters of our space. You all know that human body involves 90% of water, so it means that our main substance is vibration created in the and the way our consciousness perceives this initial reason of sound or cause for consciousness to reveal, to manifest itself, to manifest our consciousness, to manifest our individual vision of the moment we're having this year in cosmic substance age, the week. We can, and by concentrating ourselves on what the consciousness can reveal, and by drawing our attention to our life, we can make the life the week of Boar Black. And today we'll come to the most important aspect, to the thought of the day proclaimed by Madame Blavatsky. The thought is that wherever one goes, karma follows one's shadow. So it's impossibility to avoid this law. Either we accept this karmic law and try to put reasons of our thoughts so that there is a positive element, letting our soul and conscious open themselves, enlarge themselves, becoming more subtle, or we do not accept this law and start degrading. There is no development then. So today, we're having the day of horse white. It is not that simple, actually. The horse white is the symbol of the higher justice. This higher completed justice is on the highest plane in constellation of Aries, the first fire. And this first fire reveals itself as the completed justice, horse white. And in front of this horse white, we are having the principle of mouse white. It is the symbol of karma. And horse is the symbol of law. And together, these are two poles of nidana. So therefore, we are having the karmic law, the causal law. It is actually very important to note that the cross of life of the day, as any principle in the universe, has its cross of life, and this cross of life has four nidanas in itself: the horse white, the main impulse. In front of it, there is the mouse white nidana, and it is crossed, this material pole, this vertical pole is crossed by hair blue, or knowledge, and the element is air, and in front of it there is cock blue. That is the actually force of logos, and it is a really important element. HPB put the secret doctrine in this principle, in this blue cock. So this cross is the symbol of life that means today birth, or horse white. The energy has come, there is birth, birth of justice. The next principle is the cock or the rooster blue. It says that there is life born. In mouse white, there is death that comes. And in hair blue, we are having the understanding of eternal life, or life without death. So the 4 points bring us to eternity, and we are to this guides of energy. They have energy accumulated in them, and this energy is dual. So we can say like that today we should change the cosmic law, the nature law, the human law in essence of human being, in our existence. And by accepting this law, we will consciously contribute to living our day. Our consciousness cheats on ourselves. No, sorry, not cheats. It brings us to wisdom of the age, and implementation of this wisdom in Bull White says that we should implement its higher justice by realizing ourselves in this united law. So we should accept the law the way it is, and we'll accept it only when we reveal our heart. The week says that when you have opened your heart, we have a capacity of these guides or forces, or ahi. Ahi are guides. These are divine forces that help to express the universal manas or universal mind, or to introduce the internal light, buddhi. So that is the day. And now, by coordination of these nidanas, these guides, and ahi, we are coming to Dhyan stanzas. Speaking of the first stanza, first sloka, the second and the third slokas, then we'll come to the phenomenon that can respond only to abstract thinking, that has no form, but can present a united, a single image. And this image is expressed in how the third shloka says to us that there was no universal mind, for there were no akhi, or beings, conductors for universal thought. Please think on that. What are these beings? We are still coming to the conclusion that, as I imagine it, the first stanza and the first shloka speaks about this point that we cannot dwell on, that we cannot understand the eternal and the abstract thing, or at the same time universal essence that has everything in itself, the space without anything in it, that has no borders, no limits. Shloka 2 of stanza 1 says that there was no time, and there was no thing and no capacities that were put into several groups of conductors, so that
группируется что-то в одно целое, как
because this is time in the way it goes and flows,
беспредельности всего.
and the way it flows without borders. And therefore, we come to understanding that there was no opportunity. And now, in Sloka 3, we say that there was no universal mind, as there were no arhi or guides, there were no forces, and there was no opportunity to understand, to reflect, to create, to synthesize. There was no conscious, and conscious is the quality of perceiving. There was nothing that could perceive and to manifest in the way to perceive or to reflect. There were no such features. There were such conductors. And I'd like to conclude by this following thought, that there is an ode. The author is Державин, the Russian poet, speaking about the world of spirit beyond forms. That is the category we are opening in these shlokas for ourselves. And there are the following words. Dear thing with no borders and space, living in flow of time, and single in three faces of divine thing. The spirit has no cause, no place, cannot be perceived by anyone, feeling everything by itself, and called God. So there is actually the eternal triangle of spirit without forms, the first, the second, and the third shlokas. The snake shows that there was no mind, no ahi. And this first triangle has 3 points, 3 potential forces gathered at the existing planes. They reveal life in eternity. This life in eternity is a God for enlightened ones in the world of spirit beyond forms. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you for giving us direction in our common work. And we have a great pleasure to invite our guests from Greece, the Theosophical Society of Greece and the European School of Theosophy, Madam Evgenia Kostamanoti. Yes, please, you can start your speech.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and thank you, organizers, for this honor to speak in your lodge. Okay. Universal then and cosmic mind. In the third sloka of stanza 1, we read that universal mind was not. What could this mean? Why was it not? And what are the ahi? When Elena Blavatsky was answering questions asked by the members of the Blavatsky Lodge in London about the sloka under discussion today, she gave them interesting details, some of which I will quote now. Universal mind is only another name for the absolute, out in time and space. The absolute or universal mind always is during Pralaya and Manvadara. It is immutable. It is absolute consciousness eternally, which becomes relative consciousness periodically at every manvadaric dawn. It is dormant, landed mind, and only its shadow becomes differentiated in the collectivity of the highest dhyanis, the Ahi. These come into being only with the first radiation of the universal mind and are conditioned by the periodical universal law, which becomes successively active and inactive, she adds, and then continues. When the hour strikes, the law comes into action, and the Ahi appear on the first rung of the ladder of manifestation. They are the primordial 7 rays or logi, emanated from the first logos. Being on the highest plane, they reflect the universal mind collectively at the flutter of Manvandara. They are the flame from which the rays stream from unity. They are forces, not human beings. The ones here spoken of belong to the first, second, and third planes. The universal mind or universal ideation was not, she says. It did not exist for perception because the cosmic mind was still latent, a mere potentiality, and minds to receive it. This cosmic ideation or cosmic mind is not an evolution, least of all a creation, but simply one of the aspects of universal mind. Cosmic mind appears at the third stage and is confined or limited to the manifested universe. Cosmic mind is Mahat or divine ideation in its creative operation, and thus the periodical manifestation in time and in action of the eternal universal mind. Mahat, the great principle of intelligence, acts as a brain through which the universal and eternal mind radiates the Ahi, representing the resultant consciousness or ideation. Mahat, she explains further down on page 41, the universal mind is the one impersonal great architect of the universe. On the same page, she also says that the Platonic nous demiurge, the one impersonal great architect or universal mind as aspect, geometrizes. Now, the word nous is a Greek one. It means mind. Blavatsky, universal mind in its aspect as cosmic mind, being the impersonal great architect of the universe, is related to nous demiurge of the Platonic cosmogony. Plato, in his work Timaeus, says that nous demiurge, as a great mathematician and theoretician in harmony, uses number and mathematical analogies to form the cosmos. The first generation of gods comes into being, and these are the Dhyani Chohans mentioned by Elena Blavatsky in her comments of Sloka 3. They are the primordial 7 logi of her explanation in the Blavatsky Lodge, the resultant consciousness or the eternal universal mind. These gods of Timaeus are not the personified gods of the exoteric ancient Greek religion with all their mischiefs, parages, etc., as shown and taught to the profane. They are the intelligent powers which activate the laws of nature. If the name of all the gods in Greek mythology is examined etymologically, it reveals the true meaning of each one of them and their function in the manifested universe. Thus, the first generation of gods is the equivalent of the hierarchy of spiritual beings in the army, a horse truly, for which we read in the comments of Elena Blavatsky to this Sloka, through which the universal mind, in its third aspect, this cosmic mind, obviously, comes into action. At this point, it might be interesting to mention the words of Dionysius Areopagite, the first Christian bishop of the Greek Orthodox Church in Athens, Greece, who says in his work on mystic theology, "We therefore maintain that the universal or and transcendent cause of all things is neither without being, nor without life, nor without reason or intelligence. Ascending yet higher, we maintain that it is neither soul nor intellect, nor has it imagination, opinion, reason, or understanding, nor can it be expressed or conceived, not yet by the I add here." He then says, "The all-perfect and unique cause of all things transcends all affirmation, and the simple preeminence of its absolute nature is outside of every negation, free from every limitation and beyond them all." Now, I will conclude with an interesting quote from Mahatma K.H. letter number 2 to Hume, received in 1882. He says, "Did it ever strike you? Did you ever suspect that the universal mind, like the finite human mind, might have two attributes or a dual power, one the voluntary and conscious, and the other the involuntary and unconscious or the mechanical power? The infinite mind, which we name so but for agreement's sake, for we call it the infinite force, exhibits but the functions of its cerebellum, the existence of its supposed cerebrum being admitted, but on its inferential hypothesis deduced from the Kabbalistic theory of the macrocosm, the type of. It is the peculiar energy of the infinite mind, which no one could ever think of calling God, that we see so intensively active in all the fixed laws of nature, which governs and controls what is called the universe or the cosmos." So, I would dare to say here that if we consider this infinite mind as being the universal one, then the functions of the cerebellum of the infinite mind mentioned in the Mahatma's letter could be related to the highest Dhyani Chohans, the Ahi, or the primordial seven logi, and the cosmic mind as an aspect of the universal mind. Thank you for listening.
Dear Evgenia, thank you so much. Thank you for your research. It is really diverse, but still logical. Thank you very much. And now we invite our friend from India. It's Arni Narendran, the Theosophical Society of India, Lodge of Blavatsky, Mumbai. Mr. Narendran, you are welcome.
So good evening, everybody, from wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to be back here in Moscow with all those intellectuals here, gathered here every month. It's now become a habit for us to sit and discuss. Blavatsky is now slowly getting into our blood. Okay. Let me now read my talk, which is being translated. The universal mind. In the esoteric tetragrammaton symbology, is explained the genesis of the cosmos and the universal mind by Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky in a metaphysical scientific discourse expounded The Secret Doctrine. The stanza is of great importance as it unravels the beingness of the mind. For HPB, the mind is a universal state of consciousness and an integration of thought, will, and feeling. She states that the mind is only a relative manifestation of the universal consciousness of time, force, matter, and mind, which are combined causes of the physical manifestation of the universe. This includes the cosmos, mineral, plant, and human kingdom. The six-pointed star is the male and female energy, represented by two triangles, in the fusion of which is the divine mind, manifesting itself through matter. The triangles themselves emanate from the Pythagorean sacred geometry. The Pythagorean model, which has its origin in India, uses meta-mathematics and meta-geometry. Mention is made in the Nasadiya Sukta, the hymn of creation in the Rig Veda. Modern science is unraveling and validating HPB's wisdom one after the other. Research of quarry trees in New Zealand through the process of radiocarbon unravels the fact that one of the Earth's most dramatic moments was a change in Earth's magnetic field 42,000 years ago, which in turn affected human behavior and consciousness. Yet, it is true that modern science has not reached anywhere near the big picture which HPB was able to perceive with regard to the universal mind. Quantum physics and mathematical models are still falling short in understanding the mind reality. For science, it is still an existential enigma. Author Schopenhauer probably came much closer than anyone to link the Western and Eastern metaphysics. Most of the decoding of ancient wisdom undertaken by HPB is through the deciphering the symbology of Senza. René Guénon, in his book Fundamental Symbols in the Universal Language of Sacred Science, states, the highest truth which can be communicated is through symbols and will manifest them in all its splendor to the eyes of those who can see it. HPB had acquainted herself with the sacerdotal language of Senza. This is referred in Scene Chorale that the best language to perceive reality is the language of mathematics. A precursor to the ancient Vedic language of Sanskrit. The language is coded in symbols like the Egyptian hieroglyphics. It was a language of mystery, speech, unknown to the sacred ones. The ha-he is a word in the Senza language symbolizing the white serpent or the dragon of wisdom, which our brother talked in the beginning. It is a reference to the highest vehicle in the scale of manifestation. The Dhyani Chohans, also referred as the primordial seven, the Rig Veda they go by the name of the Sapta Rishi, the seven sages to the entire human race originates. The Dhyani Chohans are no anthropomorphic gods. They operate on an exclusive plane of divine consciousness. The Jews refer to it as Elohim, as it descends to the individual ego, manas. It is dual, lunar at the bottom, solar at the top. The superior is attracted to the buddhi, which is the solar, and the inferior mind to the animal soul known as kama manas of selfishness. The Hermetic Axiom, as above so below, works in the case of universal dynamics of space, force, and matter. The Manvantara and Pralaya is a daily occurrence, as per HPB says, is a state of deep sleep, of a dreamless state is a kind of Pralaya. This is a state when memory ceases to function. In the Oriental wisdom schools, the mind is referred in its seven states of manifestation: the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, the unconscious mind, the superconscious mind, collective conscious mind, spontaneous mind, and the ultimate mind, which is Atmic. Modern science look at these 7 states more on the basis of its neuron structure. The Brazilian scientist Susana Herculano Pozel states that the human brain contains 8.6 billion neurons and consumes 25% of the human calorie consumption for cognitive functions. Deepak Chopra, another neuroscientist, states that to think that the brain which can think is empty is like saying the piano understands Mozart. So where exactly does the mind manifest and how? Modern science thinks in terms of physicalism and functionalism more as a cognitive science. Blavatsky has another take. Blavatsky states, there is no special organ of the will any more than the physical basis of activities of self-consciousness. The whole conclave of psychophysiologists may be challenged to correctly define consciousness, or they are sure to fail because self-consciousness belongs alone to man and proceeds from the self and the higher manas only, whereas psychic elements of kama manas is common to both animal and human kingdom. No physiologist or manifestation of dual, no physiologist or scientist will be able to solve the mystery of the human mind in its highest spiritual manifestation, or its dual manifestation of its psychic and noetic, which is manasic in the Sanskrit term, are even comprehended by the intricacies purely on the material plane. The fact there is that segment in the mind which HPV describes as universal mind, an immutable divine Venus in all human beings. Has science reached anywhere near that space? HPV, during her own time, had realized that sectarianism is too narrow and religion too orthodox to contain the great body of wisdom that has accumulated over time. Theosophy has been presented to the world through the secret doctrine to fill this void. The path of wisdom is always open, being timeless and immutable. HPV herself advocates that each individual in his or her lifetime must experience the higher state of divine consciousness by pursuing an inward path of self-discovery and from there to self-realization. While tutoring her select students immediately after the publication of the Secret Doctrine, which our sister Evgenia talked about, at a London residence, which was recorded in a 60-page manuscript by a Dubliner, Robert Bowen, she had stated that the information contained could help the students as long as 30 or 40 years hence. She had probably underestimated her own wisdom. Theosophy has opened the eyes of wisdom not only during her time, but well into the distant future. Her formula to practitioners of Theosophy was to nourish the soul through compassion and altruism. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Dear Mr. Arni Narendran, thank you so much for your scientific approach to Sloka. It was really beneficial and useful for everyone here. Thank you so much. And now we invite our partner from far Australia, Australian Theosophical Society of Australia, Madam Esther Porkrand, Sunshine Coast Lodge, Australia. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are waiting for your speech.
Well, thank you very much for all you do. And considering that last month we explored time, or that time was not, I'm thinking of Einstein also. And just as Einstein found that our concept of time is not what we assumed it is, but that time is bent, and what's more, slows down as speed increases, so does Madame Blavatsky in this study of cosmology also bend our perceptions, our mind concepts. How can a human mind indeed get its head around abstract concepts, even such as universal mind, or its negation? We stay in the intellect. Before I start my contribution, I must stress that I'm a mere student of Theosophy. I'm no expert at all, no mathematician, nor scientist, so I wouldn't even start what Arnie shared with us. It was phenomenal. And unlike many of you others too, but someone who is very curious and now here intuiting into these stanzas afresh. I'm in awe of all the many speakers. When Evgenia asked me to contribute, you can imagine I was challenged, daunted, but also honored. So thank you for the push. Thank you for the love and effort too that has gone into your awesome initiative, Adamant Lodge, reaching your loving arms of inclusion all around the globe. I'm in awe of your translators and interpreters. I also just want to quickly acknowledge how helpful these translated slides are, even for those of us supposedly fluent in English, as pronunciation of English varies so much that often our intuitive, our own country-tuned ears to English accents are seriously challenged. So by the mere fact that we are undertaking the study across the globe using English, even when those contributing are not all native speakers of English, is phenomenal. And in itself, an intuitive expansion, a mind-opening experience, a live training, a training too of humility and gratitude to unveil our perceptions. And ironically, this global pandemic, instead of isolating us, has brought us all together. And here we are all delving deeper into the secret doctrine to prove also that the link is still unbroken. Heeding Madame Blavatsky, I've purposefully stayed away from interpretations, although quoting extensively in this talk from the secret doctrine itself, the proem, and the commentaries therein, supplementing also from HPB's Theosophical glossary. And different angles, different words, all add to a bigger picture. A talk, of course, in its speed is also not a meditative thing, and each quote does deserve contemplation. I've prepared this talk allowing recognition of the correspondences, above all, to my daily living in life, a personal inference, me also being a contemplative learner. Indeed, as per Madame Blavatsky, it must be remembered that all these stanzas appeal to the inner faculties rather than to the ordinary comprehension of the physical brain. As Pablo Senza suggested also in the first session in the introduction to this study of the stanzas of Dhyani, these shlokas contained in stanza 1 form a whole picture, and perhaps a description of the very meditative process itself. And this is where I found relevance in an anchoring point for getting closer to an actual inkling of understanding for this stanza 1, shloka 3. So let us begin stepping out into the cosmos, shloka 3, with that wonderful woodcut of Flammarions. Universal mind was not, for there were no ahi, celestial beings, to contain it. And see it in context. Following on from time was not, for it lay asleep in the infinite bosom of duration. And we are immediately struck by this almost too large a concept, this proposal of no thing, no universal, no mind, neti, not this, not that. Too hard, if we are honest, for the human mind to really grasp, as the very nature of the mind is one to concretize and to want to anthropomorphize everything, to relate it to the worldly, that which is, as is stated by HPB's proem and in Foundations of Esoteric Philosophy, an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle on which all speculation is impossible, since it transcends the power of human conception and could only be dwarfed by any human expression or similitude. It is beyond the range and reach of thought in the works of the Mandukya, unthinkable and unspeakable, but is the one absolute reality which antecedes all manifested conditioned being in a state of pralaya where universal mind was not. And HPB comes to our aid in the proem to render these ideas clearer to the general reader. Let him set out with the postulate that there is one absolute reality which antecedes all manifested conditioned being, this infinite and eternal cause deemly formulated in the unconscious and unknowable of current European philosophy, is the rootless root of all that was, is, or ever shall be. It is, of course, devoid of all attributes and is essentially without any relation to manifested finite being. It is beingness rather than being, in Sanskrit sat, and is beyond all thought or speculation. So devoid of all attributes, without any relation to manifested finite being, and therefore beyond all thought, beyond any form, even celestial. Therefore, the Ahi, the celestial beings, were not. And the picture grows as we read this conversation. In the Occult Catechism, as cited in the proem, what is it that ever is? Space, the eternal anupadaka, parentless. What is it that ever was? The germ in the root. What is it that is ever coming and going? The great breath. Then there are three eternals. No, the three are one. That which is ever, that which ever is one. That which ever was is one. That which ever is ever being and becoming is also one. And this is space. Explain, Olanu, disciple. The one is an unbroken circle with no circumference, for it is nowhere and everywhere. The one is the boundless plane of the circle, manifesting a diameter only during the manvantaric periods. The one is the indivisible point found nowhere, perceived everywhere during those periods. It is the vertical and the horizontal, the father and the mother, the summit and base of the father, the two extremities of the mother, reaching into reality nowhere. For the one is the ring, as also the rings that are within that ring. Light in darkness, darkness in light, the breath which is eternal. It proceeds from without inwardly when it is everywhere, and from within outwardly when it is nowhere. In the proem of the Secret Doctrine, it further clarifies, and Parabrahman, the Absolute, is not God, because it is not a God. It is that which is supreme and not supreme. It is supreme as cause, not supreme as effect. It is simply the unchanging, pure, free, undecaying, supreme root, the one existence, and the absolute intelligence and consciousness cannot be cognizer, for that can have no subject of condition cognition, because form was not, mind was not. The absolute is, in short, the collective aggregate of cosmos in its infinity and eternity, the that and this to which distributive aggregates cannot be applied. In the beginning, this was the self. This refers to the universe, Jagat, the sense of the words in the beginning, meaning before the reproduction of the phenomenal universe. Maybe Islam actually is closer in encouraging this expansive mind, I often think, when it does not allow depiction of any physical form, even of nature, in its places of worship, where beauty and the sublime is only depicted in geometric designs of all color combinations, shapes and sizes, yet no actual physical form, either a God image, human, animal or plant. The next part of the shloka begs the question, who are the ahi before they are not? And Madame Blavatsky emphasizes their formlessness in the Theosophical glossary, where HPB describes them as a group or class of celestial or spiritual beings known in different countries under various names, Dhyani Chohans, angels or angelic hosts, Elohim, the Greek minor logoi, and so on. Vehicles for the manifestation of cosmic mind and will. They are the collective hosts of spiritual beings through which the universal mind comes into action. They are the intelligent forces that give to and enact in nature her laws, while themselves acting according laws imposed upon them in a similar manner by still higher powers. But they are not the personifications of the power of nature, as erroneously thought. However, during Pralaya, universal mind was not, for there were no ahi to contain it, and no celestial beings to manifest mind therefore. We continue the question, who are the ahi then, before they were not? In the Transactions of the Blavatsky Lodge, Secret Doctrine, commentary by Helena Blavatsky, we are given an even larger context wherein the ahi are entities who, being on the higher planes, reflect the universal mind collectively at the first flutter of Manvantara, from Manu plus Antara between. Between two Manus, therefore, a period of activity or manifestation, after which they begin the work of evolution of all the lower forces throughout the 7 planes, down to the lowest, our own. Like all other hierarchies on the highest plane, they are arupa, that is formless, bodiless, without any substance, mere breaths. And again we read, even in this first state of manifestation, they are still formless, and it is only on the second plane, it's only therefore on the second plane they first approach to rupa or form. On the third, they become manasa putras, those who became incarnated in men. With every plane they reach, they are called by different names. Now, coming back to universal mind, to understand the context within which the ahis would be active, it states in the commentaries, the universal mind remains as a permanent possibility of mental action, or as that abstract absolute thought of which mind is the concrete relative manifestation. Yet in Pralaya, when universal mind is not, therefore it is but an abstract absolute thought, not yet manifested as mind. It is called Parabrahm, Sanskrit, where para means beyond, and Brahma, universal self or spirit, says the Theosophical glossary. It is before all things in the cosmos. In the Vedic cycle of writing, it is referred to as Tat, that, as opposed to the world of manifestation called idam, this. It is an ever concealed and incomprehensible one principle at the beginning of every manvantara or new cycle of cosmic life. And this descriptor of Parabrahman finishes significantly with citing an even larger context, but for us an easier to comprehend context. Parabrahman has the same relation to the Logos as our Atman does to our Karana Sharya. From Karana, cause, plus Sharya, body, bodily frame. And Parabrahman is the very foundation of the highest self. And now we've come back full circle. Unmanifested and yet in manifestation, macro in the micro, the first cause, before the first cause, and a correspondence as we as the human form strive to return to that through the same meditation process of neti neti from this. I am not the body, I am not the emotions, I am not my thoughts. I am the universal spirit, that I am, beyond manifestation, where mind was not, as manifestation was not, that still point. There is something very Zen happening, koans and circle symbols. For me, this shloka 3 of stanza 1 in its vastness leaves sparks of the divine for purposeful living and meditation, for the how-tos of being in this world, but not of it. Form was not. In that, there was, therefore, in this state of pralaya, a freedom from the afflictions of the manifested, the tumultuous thirsts, hungers, compulsions that agitate, distracted mankind, the kleshas in Buddhism, the 5 poisons that Patanjali's Yoga Sutras identify. And so we have a summation in this sloka of the septenary nature of the human, as above, so below correspondence, the macro in the micro by inference, the rainbow bridge into the higher non-dualistic still point, the aum, the and I will follow up on that in the next slide, our very own Theosophical seal. In particular, in this context, I'm drawn to the om or aum and the oribus seemingly confronting the swastika before swallowing its tail. And what is fascinating is that each symbol on the seal gives another perspective of the same meaning, as do the many quotes I've given above, where our minds are constantly enlarged for that bigger view. Could the Om, the swastika, the oribus all be symbolic representations for this third sloka? The still point they hint at the center. Universal mind too was not yet, for there were no celestial beings to contain or manifest it. In particular, the Om strikes me in visual form, as well as in that vocalized movement from open to a progressively closing mouth. Aum, from 3 to 2, to when our lips meet in nothingness, stillness, pralaya, dormant, that space between the next breath, that next Aum cycle, from birth to not being, and so on. And to close finally, I'm reminded of those profound mantras, these chants within this context, and often quoted in theosophical talks. Deep gratitude for your ears and hearts. Thank you. Gate gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha, from the Heart Sutra, which means gone, gone, gone to the other shore beyond. Oh, what an awakening, all hail. And the other one, Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyoti Gamaya, Yortum Amritam Gamaya. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From the darkness, lead me to the light. From the death, lead me to immortality, eternity. Thank you.
Dear Esther, thank you very much for what you are doing, for this deep understanding and such a presentation of this logic chain through all the three shloka, leading into your understanding. Thank you very much for your work. Dear friends, now we invite our guest from France, Brigitte Taquin, the Theosophical Society of France, Paris. Dear Brigitte, please switch on the microphone. We are listening to you.
I present myself. I'm a member of the French Theosophical Society, where I present once a month the HPB branch. And we study the secret doctrine together. And I give once a month also a course on main topics in the secret doctrine on Zoom because of a lockdown, and this since a few decades. I translated some books of theosophical interest, science and occultism by Dhyani, the Round of Experience by Hugh Shearman, and so on. I'm also a member of a United Lodge of Theosophy in Paris, where I give talks to from time to time, and where we study together some theosophical texts like Bhagavad Gita, Light on the Path, Voice of Silence, The Ocean of Theosophy. So this was a little presentation of my personal characteristics, and about the shloka 3 of the first stanza, I compiled some quotations and thoughts of mine. Most of them have been evoked before, but I come as the last speaker, so I read to you what I wrote. So in the Secret Doctrine, comments on the shloka, HPB says that mind is defined as the sum of the states of consciousness grouped under thought, will, and feeling. The Dhyani Chohans are there described as the collective host of spiritual beings. In the Theosophical glossary, we learn that Ahi is a Senza word corresponding to the Sanskrit word Ahi, which means a serpent. Dhyani Chohans, wise serpents and dragons of wisdom, so often mentioned in the Secret Doctrine. So, yeah, a few quotations of a collected writing, transaction of a Blavatsky Lodge, and Secret Doctrine Dialogues, which is a new publication of his transaction, more complete, so to say. So during Pralaya, there are no Ahi, because they come into being only with the first radiation of a universal mind. Further, we find the Ahi are conditioned by the awakening into manifestation of the periodical universal law, which becomes successively active and inactive. These Ahi are, so to say, the shadow of Parabrahman, and this is this first radiation of the eternal universal mind, noumenor, which becomes differentiated in the collectivity of these dynamics. The I, being on the highest plane, reflects the universal mind at the first flutter of Manvantara, after which they begin the work of evolution of all the lower forces throughout the 7 planes, down to the lowest, our own. The high are not the logoi which constitute Mahat, the first manifested logos. It can't be considered as entities, nor as men. They are depicted as mere breaths. They are only conscious in the sense that they act within the universal consciousness. Further, we find this quotation: the I are forces, powers, not human beings. Page 322 of the Collected Writing, Volume 10. In the Secret Doctrine Dialogues, page 37, it says, they pass through all the planes till they become on the 3rd plane, Manasaputra, the sons of Manas, or mind. They are Aupa. On the highest plane, these Hai are Aupa, formless, bodiless, without any substance, without anything. They are breaths. On the 2nd plane, they approach Rupa, or form. Then on the 3rd, they become Manasarupa, those who become incarnated in men. There is a continual differentiation of their original homogeneous substance. We call it substance, although in reality it is no substance of which we can conceive. Later, they become rupa, ethereal forms. Further, we find this quotation: on every plane they reach, they are called by other names. In the Secret Doctrine, they are said to be the Elohim and messenger of the Jews, the archangelic host of Christianity. They are the intelligence force, singular, that give to and enact in nature her laws, while themselves act according to laws imposed upon them by still higher powers. We can see there are no entities, no men, since they have no will and are not independent. The universal mind always is. During Pralaya, as well as during Manvantara, it is immutable. It shouldn't be confused with cosmic mind or cosmic ideation, which appears only on the 3rd plane of the manifestation as Mahat, Brahma, and so many other names. Time and space start on the 3rd plane, that of Mahat, which launches the manifestation. The Ahi are the highest Dhyanis who begin the downward evolution or emanation. They do not exist during the big Mahapralaya. They only come into beings with the first radiation of a universal mind, which itself cannot be differentiated, being eternal and thus changeless. They are the vehicles, the agent of the expression of this first radiation of the universal mind. They are a unity which proceeds from unity. From the one, they become free. From the free, they become seven, because there is a prismatic scale of colors. Further in the collected writings, same volume, page 347, it said, they are the primordial seven rays from which will emanate, in their turn, all the other luminous and non-luminous lives, whether archangels, devils, men, or apes. Some have been, and some will only now become human beings. Thus we can say, as a conclusion, that there is not a being from the lowest to the highest which has not made its first apparition in our solar system as a part of this huge host of the highest. Thank you for your attention. I'm in charge to send you the greetings of all the French students of the Secret Doctrine, which I know. And I thank Evgenia and the translation team for all the work they do in the interest of Theosophy, in fact. Greeting to all.
Dear Bridget, thank you so much. We really grateful to you for clarity of your material. Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, today we have this opportunity to analyze the third shloka in many aspects according to your material. There's been the way the shloka sounds, we hear it today. It's different from the common way because it's scientific approach. Well, it is impossible to reveal all the depth of shloka, but it's possible to give direction to our thought and to open this or that thought in Dhyani texts. It's really important. Today, each of you has shared his or her understanding, and this meditative work can be revealed in words only when we trust each other inside and flow into one another. That is really mission of humanity. And today, each and every of you shared your understanding sincerely. Thank you so much for this trust to us, trust to each of us today. I'd like to add several thoughts that have come to me during study of the third shloka. Stanza 1, shloka 3, there was no universal mind as there was no ahi to contain it. Everything that is not in the absolute and unchanging start existence should be necessarily limited and should result from something, as everything has beginning and its end. The absolute mind exists forever, and its reflection and manifestation is in Ahi, who, being inhabitants of the upper level, begin to collectively reflect the universal mind with the first glimpse of Manvantara. They create all the lower powers at all the 7 levels, up to the lowest one. And I'd like to elaborate this very point. I'd like to look how it happens. Ahi is the hierarchy of beings, which concentrates in its first manifestation as Dhyani Chohans, the celestial beings. I think it's very important the point describing universal mind was not yet. HPB writes that the mind is a sum of consciousness conditions, or there is a certain consciousness from the large letter that is the single, is the sum of its states. So this sum is grouped under some determinants. Some determinants can be told as shown in geometry, the sum of states of consciousness. And there are only 3 determinants. The question is how these 3 can have the whole sum of consciousness. Let us look at it. The first sum is thought, the second sum is will, and the third one is feelings. The combination of these gives an explanation sum of the consciousness state, thought, will, feelings, which is mind. Let us look at geometry once again. How does it reveal? There is the one sum, thought, the second one, will, the third one, thought, feeling, and all together we have thought, feelings, and will, that is razum in Russian, or mind. It is the third stage of 7 creations, the divine source of ideas, or the divine source of all beings. If we look at Dhyan stanzas, we will understand how it is revealed in reality. We understand that the first one is thought, and that the thought was the first movement of cosmos. So cosmos comes from thought, but without will it cannot reveal, it has no movement, and feelings give further differentiation of these consciousness. HPB writes that Ahia first, second, and third level. So we can say that the first level is Ahia Rupa, the second one is the Ahia essence, just beginning to approach Rupa. And the third one is something that has a 7-fold manifestation, the starting point of the original manifestation, the 7 initial rays emanating from the first logos, 3-fold, but one, single in its essence. So Ahi passes through all levels. They all pass through all levels, but begin to manifest only at the 3rd level. Like at all other hierarchies, they remain at the highest level. Like all other hierarchies, at the highest level, they remain in the state of arupa, devoid of any substance, without the form of a body, as long as it's just a breath. Only at the 2nd level, they begin to approach the state of rupa, or form, and at the 3rd level, they become manasaputras, who are reborn in humans. Then we can assume that hierarchy of divine beings, the Dhyani Chohans, as Ahi unites the planes of existence. The plane of spirit beyond force, all forms, reflection of the absolute is the single or God's plane, the plane of spirit, and the prototype's plane is the unmanifested state of consciousness, then lower planes that are manifested through a particular hierarchy. If Ahi is a breath, then an in-breath and an out-breath. If we now say this word ah, physically, we will inhale ah. This breath from the outside to the inside goes to the point where we can concentrate 3 planes at one point in the breath until the ah disappears, then sigh. When the person breathes, there's a pause between inhalation and exhalation. It's not like consistent process, there are pauses. It's not simultaneous action to inhale and to exhale. And this pause in a cosmic symbolic approach is a preliminary image. Ah, then there is a pause, pre-image plane with everything being in it, and from this plane there is a second part, or he, exhalation. We exhalate from the inside to the outside. Ahi, inhalation and exhalation, and all the hierarchy of divine beings is built as ahi, inhalation and exhalation. You should notice that ahi is wrote through dash. So it is similar to planes of existence. That is one of ideas we looked at the fourth Congress in 2020. And one of ideas expressed as the sum of consciousness state. It is the thought and will proclaimed at different planes. It is what gives impulse to all the planes of existence. We also can say that inhalation is pralaya. The universal mind isn't pralaya itself, but in potential, and exhalation in Manvantara, and through the sum of divine hierarchy, it's manifested, and here is when Manvantara comes. HPB writes that Manvantara starts to proclaim itself at the dawn, and there is the white light that is bright. He really proceeded from the mind, and this light was really making us almost blind. There are 7 correlations with color in these planes. So it's orange, purple, red, yellow, blue, blue, green, and corresponds to the planets: Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. In the essence, these colors are hidden, but they have a correlation of color and manifestation in their further differentiation. If there is a further conversion to the form, then we should consider this idea. Razum, or the mind, is divided into Ra in Russian, that is the sun god name, coming to the third race, and humanity became monadic, and the monad began to manifest itself as the descent of this light to the second part in Russian word razum, intelligence. It can be divided by letter Z. That is Ra, Z is or intelligence. Symbolically, Z, who drew the letter Z, will see it as connecting the top and bottom. Razum, the mind, connects the top and the bottom, beginning and end, manifested and unmanifested, and cycles. Ahi allows us to see and understand clearly. They can connect the mind and the heart and become intelligent. Then the ray touches our consciousness and understanding comes. At each level they attain, they receive new names, and their original homogeneous substance becomes more and more differentiated, and they subsequently become Rupa etheric doubles. The 6th-ray star is Rupa Ahi, or the property of understanding for man, a Z connecting the bases of 2 triangles of the highest and the lowest. Ahi arise from consciousness, a sum of ideas. As the shadow of this initial triangle descends lower and lower, it becomes more material with each passing step, and finally reaches the level where consciousness begins to perceive objective manifestations. The first triangle comes up, displayed in the second triangle vertex down. So the first is vertex up, the second is vertex down, and then they start moving towards each other. A 6-ray star appears here. It's Rupa, or Ahi form. So Ahi has levels 1, 2, and 3. So the development of thought has stages 1, 2, and 3. At the first stage, a person learns to reason. His mind works. The understanding, we know, and the mind determines the lowest principle of the nature of the human intelligence. The human mind. Then the person learns to reflect and takes different thoughts and connects them and reflects. And the third stage, the highest one, is where the person learns to think. Levels 1, 2, and 3 do correspond to development of thought, to reason, to reflect, and to think, as the levels 1, 2, and 3 of Ahi. Here, there is also an idea. Before the point where Ahi became exhalation, there was one subtle nuance. HPB writes, Ahi, the hierarchy of spiritual beings through whom the universal mind manifests, the Dhyani Chohans, the vehicles of universal thought and will, who give and establish its laws in nature. This expression, Ahi, who establish its laws in nature, note here that Ahi first create a suitable basis, which only then becomes a guide. But what is this basis? Not to delegate your laws to nature, but to establish its laws. It changes everything. That is the hierarchy of celestial beings that Dhyani Chohan. They were in the beginning the basis to reveal in nature its own laws and not to impose their own. Great reverence was at first, and only then, in the matter of space of a certain plane, this same Ahi began to manifest them, acting according to the laws assigned to them by the supreme forces. What does it mean? This means that in the beginning, this reverence was shown to bring out its laws in nature. So the first manifestation was when the higher forces asked the permission from the lower forces. That's what it means. Here is such a nuance, and it even changes the hierarchical view in general. So the beginning was when the higher forces asked the lower forces, the base, can we even manifest here? The lower ground was ready. That is, the Dhyani Chohan rays gave the first blinding light. They prepared the matter for manifestation, and the seven-ray star on this plane gave the very basis. It asked for permission, and then the guides of Dhyani Chohans began to fulfill the will to the highest of the densest of our plane. So it's not for nothing that the Dhyani Chohans are symbolized by a seven-pointed star. This is the first glimpse of the basis of resolution, this great manifestation of the highest hierarchy, when the higher asked the lower, and the lower allowed, and the higher began to manifest. How does it manifest? The seven-ray star is not just drawn without breaking off one movement. It is a single beam. There are no seven rays. There are only potentially. That is the basis of a single beam in the seven rays potentiality, still undeveloped. This is luminous matter, which is the same as described by Helena Ivanovna Rerich as the canvas of mother of the world, where only then there is the pattern. She showed this reverence. She accepted and understood this shining light. And these were the rays of seven major planets, the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. These are seven rays underlying the Kalachakra, defining 12 nidanas, the seven rays and 5 elements. 7 plus 5 makes 12. That is not their own laws that Dhyani Chohans began to establish, but it was her laws of the nature that was potentially manifesting itself. The universal mind that exists always in both Pralaya and Manvantara, it is unchangeable, and the Ahi have its property of making the noumenon of phenomenon through the suitable basis of becoming vehicles. Here is simply and vividly explained the very task of Ahi, who they are. Indeed, the flaming dragons of wisdom. At this movement, when all this is in potency, there was no universal mind, because there was still the duration of Pralaya. So there were no Ahi, the basis through which this universal mind could manifest. And most importantly, that is that it can be manifested only through containing. That is when differentiation comes, accommodation comes, and there are many manifestations. Ahi comes from the unity and is the first of these seven rays. a single white ray, then 3, then 7, and these 7 initial colors are differentiated to infinity. We can say that this initial third world of 3 is the mind. The next star is heart of mind, and next are either doubles. So that is how the world of truth is like a shining star fallen from the heart of eternity. It is the beacon of hope with the 7 worlds of existence hanging on its 7 rays.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you very much for having listened to these words. Dear members of the research group, dear speakers, thank you very much for your material, for this analysis of the first stanza, Sloka 3. And I'd like to ask you members to express your commentaries you could give following discussion of today's Sloka. Today we have our Sergei Kolganov from Moscow University, Sergei Kolganov, PhD in Theosophical Sciences. Welcome. I welcome you all, dear friends. I would like to, at the beginning, say that every workshop, almost everyone, after each workshop, we see how Maya, or the illusion, goes back and limits are going back. What rests to us? We have only truth left. This truth shows us that all the time we have not manifested and not evident close to us, and it really brings us joy. It means that there is an eternal number of forces close to us, the whole reservoir of forces. It means that there is eternity, infinity of time close to us. It means that always we have everything for infinity of our projects, of our actions. And those who are not present at our workshops, unfortunately, even do not imagine that that is the case. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Kolganov. It's really the case. When someone is not present at the workshop, this person loses understanding. Thank you. Mr. Rashubkin, please comment on our work today. Hello, dear colleagues. I really like the fact as physician that in the Sloka 3, we see that does not have any form, that is not manifested and gets form only afterwards. I'm really glad because today all the physics and quantum physics is based on the fact that from things that have no form and no manifestation in space and in time, that are the things where we get our space and time from. And here Theosophy is literally the basis, the fundamental science, having basis for all of that. Modern quantum physics was coming to this understanding with time, and it starts to confirm our truths from Theosophy, proclaimed by Madame Blavatsky. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Rashubkin. Thank you for working with us, and thank you for being present, for helping our understanding. Ask Mr. Andriy Narendran. You're present at every workshop, regardless from whether you're a speaker or not, and you have your own consequence of thoughts. Please share your thoughts about the work today and your impressions, please. Thank you.
I was actually fascinated, by how the perception of the four speakers was variant. At the same time, there was a unity of thought. This is exactly what the secret doctrine is all about. Secret doctrine is 30% symbology, and the Adamant Lodge has been trying to decode this, because at each lecture I find the symbology, decoding the symbology was very important. And why Blavatsky didn't have time to explain all the symbology. What she quickly did was, as after the secret doctrine was written, she wanted to make sure it is properly understood. That's why she had this 60-page manuscript, which we talked about with the Irishman, Mr. Bowen, because she wanted to make sure that the symbology was understood. And especially, she wanted to present this facts to the scientific world. If you see her discussion to her cousin, for those of you who have read the Russian magazine, which she was contributing, which is Nadia, she says to her cousin, look, there are a lot of scientists among my the class students, and I'm very keen that I should be able to match their introspective mind. So Blavatsky was not just taking away information, ancient wisdom, and just vomiting it out on the pages. No, Blavatsky was also trying to chew the cud, as they say in English, chewing the cud. Was doing that and trying to the unexplained laws of nature. She was able to explain the unexplained laws of nature. Unfortunately, as you know, her last 4 years she was sick, and you'll not believe, she was so sick that when the masters came and told her, would you like to leave the body? She said, or would you like to finish the secret doctrine? Look at the kind of sacrifice she made. She said, no, I have come thus close. I will not leave my body. I will rather accept the pain. And she finished that. So there are many other issues where she talks. I told you, she talks around to her students that the information which I'm giving you is going to hold water for 40 years, 50 years, he said. And actually, we find science is still ungrappling with the grappling and trying to decode this, but they're doing it very gradually, but they're coming very close to what Blavatsky is talking about. And it's also important, she says, number 2, instead of 2 volumes of the secret doctrine, there is enough material for 20 volumes to be written. But then the world was not ready by the time she was trying to present it. So I think what we are doing right now is exactly, we are on the right path. And I must thank our Russian friends for trying to decode the symbology of the secret doctrine. And if anybody, I don't know, Evgenia can probably explain, has anybody studied the symbology of secret doctrine in a PhD thesis? Has anybody done that? I don't know. I would really love that if that's been done.
Yes, we've told many times that in Russia we've created a Russian esoteric school of Theosophy named after HPB. It was established by Mr. Bakanov, who systematized that secret doctrine, who revealed many symbols, these planes of existence, the 7-ray star, and all the schemes and tables and Kalachakra. And that is actually a revelation of symbolism of the secret doctrine. Thank you. Today, for the first time, we welcomed our partners from Greece and Australia. Please, Madam Evgenia Kastamoniti, the European School of Theosophy, please share your impressions a bit.
Well, it was my first time today, and I'm really impressed about the work that is being done. Thank you very much for the invitation. Symbolism, as we know, is the mystery of the language of the mysteries, and this is what Elena Blavatsky uses for the secret doctrine, because it's not possible to present to people the whole truth. It has to be only through symbols. So the ones who know, as Master says in one of his letters, will understand, and the others will not. And in the middle, there will be those who will try to understand like we are doing. So, by the way, I wanted to say that the letter Zend, which in the Russian alphabet gives number 8, in the Greek alphabet is number 7, which again is the symbol of the 7 first primordial ahi, the 7 primordial logi. So it is similar. I really enjoyed, Evgenia, your diagrams. Very, very, very explanatory. Thank you very much, all of you, and thank you for your invitation today.
Thank you, dear Evgenia. We will be waiting for you at our workshop, so you will hopefully help our work. Dear Esther, from Australia, please share a bit of words, your impressions.
I'm just so grateful for what you do. As I said in my talk, it's phenomenal that we are all gathered here under the banner of the English language, but so many people are non-native speakers. And Evgenia, I just loved your diagrams. They speak 1,000 words. And I'm impressed of how you can actually produce them. I have no idea how I would do that, but they are just wonderful. How you also brought in the planets and the rays, and you brought it down to our level as well. The human form, you know, a manifestation, and everybody contributed another aspect. And this is what I love, that we all looked at the Sloka 3, stanza 1, but everybody added that little bit, which is just the purpose of a group like this to come together. So I feel grateful, humbled to be here. Actually, I'm learning so much. I'm actually learning so much. Thank you.
Огромное спасибо.
Thank you very much. And what are we learning together is the most important thing we're learning, to trust each other 100% and to be open, to be sincere. When we trust each other, then we can share our revelations about the secret doctrine. It is all connected. Annie Kelly, dear Annie, you are here with us every time, and you support us by your soul and your beautiful emotions. Please share a bit. Theosophical Society of England, Annie Kelly.
It is so wonderful to be here. Thank you for all that you do, all the effort that you put in, the translators, the Adamant Lodge. Thank you, all of you, for putting this together. Every time I come, every single time, no matter how much I've studied this, the perspectives coming in from all of the speakers, all of those who think and share at the end. Thank you. The third sloka we're looking at, we had Esther. Fantastic to see you here, Esther. I'm so excited. So we have Australia coming in. Bridget, lovely to see you. Fantastic presentation, Arnie, and Evgenia from Greece. It's really wonderful to see all of these fresh faces and beautiful, passionate hearts coming in to share on this very important subject. I was thinking when you were sharing, Evgenia, about thoughts, will, emotions, and feelings, this universal consciousness that has created us, this infinite mind, is also, as we say, macrocosm and microcosm. This is us as well. So as we look at this, my big thing is to implement these teachings of Theosophy, not just to study them, but to become them. This thought force, this consciousness is within us as well. So it's always inspiring to see how Theosophy can be applied when we realize that we are far more than just our own thoughts and emotions and will, and we have control over those. We can control thoughts, emotions, and will, and what a different world it will be when we put these teachings into application and become what we see and what we hear in these beautiful seminars. Thank you for all that you do. It is an honor to be here. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to draw a conclusion to our workshop by words that here and now, literally, I wrote a point of symbols in the second sloka. Please look at it if you want. So here it is. Thank you so much. So together we draw, not only in our mind, but on the paper as well. Dear friends, dear members of the scientific group and our interpreters who every time do it possible and make our connection possible so that we can communicate. Thank you very much to everyone. Dear friends, if you have a wish to express your thoughts, express your points of works on the Secret Doctrine, please write to us. We'll have the banner at the end of the workshop with our contacts, so you can contact us. Thank you very much, all the guests, all the speakers, for their thoughts they shared. You are all active workers. We have questions and Q&A section, and soon we'll have one more Theosophical quiz. That is the material for learning and answers to questions on this Sloka. Thank you very much for your work you are doing in the whole world for the sake of Theosophy. So we are saying goodbye to you. The next seminar and the 27th of March, we'll be together. It is easy to be together. So goodbye till the next meeting on the 27th of March.
Goodbye.
Wish you light and
Goodbye.
love.
Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye, all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
to
everybody.
everyone.
Good night, and thank you, everybody.
Good night, Arnie.
Thank you. Good night, Anne.
Good night,
The
everybody.
Secret Doctrine
Good night, everybody.
by
Esther,
Blavatsky,
thank you.
Hi, Esther. Thank you. You were
Evgenia.
dedicated to all true Theosophists. Quote